Hi, I'm Dawn Montefusco, and this is Write Because It Matters. And today we have Storm Large with us. She's a woman I've been in awe of for over 15 years. She's been dubbed a force of nature both on stage and off stage. She's a singer, songwriter, actor, and author who created her own autobiographical one-woman show. And she also attracted national attention as a contestant on the CBS reality TV show, Rockstar Supernova. She is today one of the lead singers of the amazing group Pink Martini, who says they are a little orchestra, and their genre is actually cross-genre of Latin, jazz, classical, and old-fashioned pop. Mm-hmm. Storm has also done one of the hardest things I think a person can do, which is to get really, really personal and tell her story, not just in performance or in a song, but to write a very in-depth memoir about a life of having a childhood that was sad, scary, and somewhat disheartening, that led into a ferocious life that was a little dangerous of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But the twist is that she simultaneously infuses the magical quality of how her life unfolded with gratitude.
Spoiler alert, I survive at the end.
And she's tall.
Kinda.
So just I'm gonna go straight for a very simple question. Why write it?
I was tricked. I'm not kidding, I was tricked. I was doing my one-woman show. I was tricked into, I was strongly encouraged to write the one-woman show. Chris Coleman, who was the executive artistic director at Portland Center Stage. We worked together on Cabaret. I was Sally Bowles, and talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. A lot of stories from my past came up, and so he was trying to encourage me to write something for the stage, and I thought, oh yeah, it'll be really fun, sex, drugs, rock and roll. And then he said, no, it should be about your mom and mental illness. And I was like, yeah, no, that's a stupid story. Nobody wants to hear that. That's a bummer. No one wants to hear that. But then much encouraging, many lunches, and then finally my partner, James Beaton, calling me chicken, I did it. And then, while I was writing it, my friend Larry Colton, who is a memoirist here in town, mostly a sports-oriented writer, but he also does a lot of historical biographies. He's a wonderful writer, a funny guy. He asked me to participate in a fundraiser for Wordstock, and just as a musician. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'd love to, and I'm kind of working on this play, and I'm kind of busy. And he said, well, why don't you send me some of the stuff you've been working on? And I mentor a lot of writers. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not a writer, I'm a musician. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to tell stories and sing songs sort of in a linear format. So anyway, I sent him what I had, and before I knew it, he sent what I had sent him to his wife, who was a crazy, savant reader, absorber of all kinds of things, and to his agent in New York City, who then, the three of them started pressuring me to write a book. This is a book, this is a book, this is a book, you have to write a book. I'm like, I'm barely educated, I have such bad dyslexia. No, I can't do it. No, I don't want to do it. And so ultimately, he turned into my agent in New York City, and he said, just write a proposal. Just write a proposal. This is how you write a proposal. I was like, well, all right, God. And I was doing the play, and I was busy, and so I wrote the proposal. And then he said, well, when can you get to New York? And I go, well, I've got a gig there in 3 months. He goes, no, I need you here in the next 2 weeks. And I said, why? And he goes, because we're going to talk to some people about your proposal. I go, can't they call me? He's like, no, you're going to get a book deal, stupid. So that's what happened. I got tricked.
In the book, the doctor tells you at 9 years old that you're going to wind up like your mother, who's in a mental institution. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you were telling your friends and they said, you should write that down? Is it something that defined you? Is it something that you've been trying not to do?
It's something that sometimes people say things out loud that you already believed. So to me, it didn't seem like that jarring of an event. But when I told it to people, they're like, that's horrible. That's unbelievable. What? But then if you talk to other doctors, some doctors would say that's pretty awful. But a lot of doctors would be like, that's actually really common for someone to have crappy bedside manner like that. And not to, you know, it wasn't him sitting me down going, this is going to happen to you. It was just sort of a passing thing of, yes, it's going to happen because you're her daughter. You're definitely going to end up like your mother, but we know so much about her illness. You're going to be fine.
Wow.
It was sort of, you're doomed, but we've got it. You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. And you know, when you're 9, you're like, okay, I'm okay. But it didn't, I looked like my mom, and everyone around me was upset. Everyone was always upset. So it was like, that was just one thing of 1,000 things that was jarring and upsetting and awful and motivating for me to run away, to try and make myself as completely different, if not opposite, of my mother and everyone around me, because it was just so unhappy and palpably miserable and painful. I had to become unaffected. I had to become somehow numb or strong or above it, beyond it. So yeah, when people always stop on that when they read that in the book or they hear it in the show. Oh, and I'm like, it's funny to me that people react that way, where, you know, people say things all the time that are ghastly, that are just sort of on the way to making a point. I don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel as if the way that you write the book, everything that happened to you is okay. That it unfolded in a way to make you this amazing inspiration, and you've embraced it, where some people would just go down fall under the bus with a life like that to some degree. Maybe.
I had an interesting conversation with a random, I love taking the train, because you're going to end up having a conversation with someone, or at least I am. I'm pretty gregarious in that way. I ended up sitting with a child psychologist. And so we struck up a conversation, and the book came up, and the subject came up of resilience. She goes, a lot of the studies now are about resilience. It's really interesting. I'd be curious to talk to you about how you survived. And there are commonalities in the surviving people of trauma. And I said, well, I wasn't traumatized. Nobody ever hit me or burned me with cigarette. Well, I was burned with cigarettes, but not by my mom. But she said, having a mentally ill parent, having the things happen that were happening in my life and my brother's lives were traumatizing. But then when you think about other people and other, the lives that other children have lived and are living today, I feel incredibly, privileged. I always had a place to stay. I always had food. Nobody beat me. Yes, it was traumatizing. Yes, it was scary and upsetting and lonely. And I still have things that I respond to very negatively because of my upbringing. But I've also had incredible good luck in being physically big and strong and being able to physically fight, being somewhat attractive so I can sell whatever I'm creating. And, there's a lot of incredibly fortunate things that I give way more credence to than the negative things that have happened in my life. So that's how I'm wired, and maybe that's part of my bravado of being like, fuck you, I'm not ending up like that. I'm not ending up like that. Because my mom did roll over and let all of the terrible things that happened to her define her and make her and create this thing that forced us all to deal with it. I'm like, no way. I'm gonna pick up my own shit. I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna live my own life. I am a walking bicep of
Yeah.
I am the gun show and nobody can no one's gonna get me.
You definitely, I just have to say though, that energy is what I'm talking about when I say it's inspiring.
Oh, I hope so.
You know, would you have written the book if your mom was still alive?
Yeah. But it might have been fiction. It would have killed her, and I don't owe her anything other than my life, you know. She was determined to have a girl, and she had horrible endometriosis and had lots of difficulty with pregnancies, had a very long-term miscarriage before she got pregnant with me, and her doctors were trying to melon ball her and get her uterus and give her, you know, oh, don't you want to stop having your period, and oh, you know, the way they just very cavalierly would give everyone a hysterectomy if they wanted. And my mom was really dead set against it. She wanted to have a girl, and so once she had me, as soon as I was 6 months old, they took all of her organs, and that was the tipping point, according to my dad, when she really went off the deep end. There was always voices and there's always stuff, but yeah, as you probably read in the book, I talked to her a few months before she died, after not talking to her for probably 7 years. And so her dying definitely gave me permission to tell the story a little more loudly.
And your family approved it as well.
Well, I asked them before I signed before I signed the book deal, I had there was not a bidding war, but I had 2 offers that were kind of, they were jockeying. It was Simon & Schuster, and I think, was it Random House? I can't remember. Some big company. They're amazing, and they really, really, really wanted the book, and they made this amazing offer, and then I had this other offer, and I was freaked out. I was like, I've never seen so much money like offered to me for anything, you know? And so I called my brothers and I called my dad and I said, okay, this is gonna happen, and that I got deals offered to me for lots of money to tell this story. I'll change your names, whatever you want, or I won't do it. Tell me if you don't want me to do it. And they're just like, tell your story. Tell your story, it's fine. You know.
Well, you said in the book, actually it was in an interview, you said it wasn't cathartic, but it gave you permission to forgive yourself. Actually, it was exactly, I think, was that right? That's what I remember reading. That it was an emotional experience. Yeah. You didn't find it cathartic, but you learned that you were worthy of forgiveness.
Yeah, at some point. Because when you're sitting in a moment where you're remembering, if you remember a bad thing that happens to you, transiently, you know, you're sitting with your friends and you're talking about, you know, abusive situations that you found yourself in, or like sexual harassment situations, or abuse or molestation. So many women have had, we have stories like that. And you're sitting around sort of not reliving, but you're just telling your tale. You have your story, a few stories, but when you're writing the memoir, you go back to the time where that thing happened, and you're wearing those pants and those shoes, and you're under that sky, and you're in that cafe, and that taste is in your mouth. And reflecting and living and reviewing those things that happened to me forced me to see that I was the asshole doing it.
Oh.
I was the asshole that put myself in those situations. And at first blush, you're just like, oh God, yeah. You're not a victim, you're a douche. But there is some forgiveness. There's a lot of forgiveness to the child. To the child I was through my teens. You know, I've grown to forgive the angry kid, the kid that said terrible things to her mother who was just sick, the child who who frightened everybody by disappearing all the time. I forgave Baby Storm. Can't protect her, can't do anything to change it, but proud that I grew up to be at least a modicum of useful in society.
Definitely.
Yeah.
When I work with people on memoir, they're not as famous, or they don't know if it's going to get published, but they're very determined, and they have really remarkable stories. What advice maybe would you have to someone in terms of writing a memoir that they're feeling very driven to do, but they're scared and the emotions are coming up? Do you feel that it still matters that they tell their story?
Absolutely. As I mentioned to you earlier, I had two editors. One left early in the process to change careers, and it happens all the time. Don't take it personally. And then my second and final editor really was more of a person I could call at 4 a.m. drunk, saying, okay, is it normal to think that this is the stupidest book that's ever going to be written by anybody ever, anywhere? I'm going to be laughed at, aren't I? I'm going to be laughed at. And she said, literally everyone feels that way. Everyone, and every writer I've ever talked to, I mostly hang out with musicians, so we have all this bullshit bravado of, we have this swagger that's sort of part of our gig, but writers are like internal, and, there's some external Hemingway-ish type,
A lot of drinking.
Well, yeah. Oh my God, I drank so much. But anyway, when you talk to writers, it's like you have an idea and you start to do it and you're like, oh my God, this is garbage. It's garbage. And you're going to feel that way. My only advice, read it out loud, tell the story. It's the same for me as writing a song. You'll start writing a song, you'll start writing lyrics on paper, and then when you pick them up off the paper and put them in your mouth and in the air around you, maybe with a guitar or a bass or piano, just pull them out and see if they make sense. Tell the story in the car out loud to yourself, or tell the story to a friend, or read it out loud. A writer's group is awesome.
I was going to ask you about
I had an amazing writers group called the Big Brain Trust with Courtney Hameister, Marcus Cito.
Susie Vitello, is she in there?
No.
I didn't know.
I think she was in Chelsea Kane's book group. They were the cool group.
Oh.
But Chelsea likes me. So
how is it working with the writers group? Tell me more about that, because I think that people can gather groups of writers.
Absolutely. It was always great because they, we all had ideas that we were working on, and we all brought something completely different, unique voices, unique. Some of us were just writers. Some of us were writers and storytellers. Some of us were musicians. Christine McKinley was in our group, and some of us were playwrights.
Oh, great.
Cynthia Whitcomb was in our group, and so we were all coming from different places, and we all had different sort of angles on what we thought was good writing and good process. But for me, part of the process, because I felt like such a tourist, such a novice, was just reading things to other writers. Was priceless to me.
I can't say enough about a good
Yeah.
writer. Even a writer's group. I don't even think it needs to be like the best of the best.
No.
Just having the hive mind and presenting, and all of a sudden you think, God, I don't suck that bad.
Well, yeah, just to have someone go, that's a really cool idea. I think your next move should be, we took a day with index cards where I put everything out, going, okay, starts here, ends here. These are the movements, and to have, even if you're not in the same kind of genre as the person,
Agreed.
it's almost better, and it was funny because I didn't encounter any competitiveness. There was no, because we are all, like, writers are all fucking asking so much of strangers. As a musician, I'm lit and electrified, and my boobs have glitter on them, and I look awesome, and you're gonna look at me and you're gonna have a good time because duh, it's obvious. But
It is a really good time whenever she's on stage, though.
But it's just anybody, any performer, anyone who has the testes to get up and perform.
Mm-hmm.
The audience is on your side. The audience is always on your side, even if they don't like that kind of music. They're like, your boobs, your boobs. I love it.
It's true.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah, all right, I get it. But as a writer, you're asking everything of a total stranger that you will never see, ever.
Yeah.
You probably never even see the money because it'll never reach, unless you're a super up there, bestseller. You're not going to recoup your advance, so you won't even see money from this person. So there's nothing connecting you. So as an artist, you're like, oh God, please love me. Please I hope I make sense.
Very intimate. What I'm hearing is that though it's like, wow, I'm putting all this out there, and at the same time, it's like you're giving them everything.
Message in a bottle.
Yeah.
Save me, understand me, relate to me. And but what was so amazing, what happened, because I didn't know any better than to just be honest. Everyone thinks, oh, you're so honest. Was that hard? I'm like, I'm a shitty liar. I only know, I just did the only thing I knew how to do, which was just tell the story. So many people come to me still, yourself included, and just got it.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you. And was so, just even if they don't relate to the story, the courage supposedly that it took to tell was important to them in their process wherever they were. And that's so huge as an artist, to not only have someone think you're good, but to have it matter. To have it matter. It's the hugest thing in the world. So but that shouldn't be, what you shouldn't work towards that outcome, but work towards yourself being comfortable in your voice.
Yes, I agree. It's a personal journey, and I say the private world, the deep private world, is really a reflection of the universal world, and I think you nailed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Done.
The book's called Crazy Enough, and who's publishing? It's
Simon & Schuster, Free Press.
Free Press.
Free Press doesn't exist anymore, but Simon & Schuster still carries the book.
And you can find Storm. I will have links to her site, stormlarge.com, and then Pink Martini, and then links to her book and some of her YouTube interviews. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Thanks.